Hi, it's me, Brooks. Welcome to Heal This. I am very honored to have Kim Rose with me today. We are talking about our journey back into rewilding and what is that and what does that mean for you? And she's going to share her story, and it's very compelling. And I love her so much. We are friends. We met while doing our Reiki Master, which is energy work, for those of you who don't know what that is. And she is an amazing person. She's going to introduce herself here and tell us a little bit more about herself. Hi, Kim. How's it going?
Hey, Brooks. Hi, thank you for having me today.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit more about yourself that I might not have included in the introduction.
Yeah, prior to a diagnosis that I'll go into, I was very into the metaphysical world, doing the Reiki master training, having clients. I have a yoga teacher training. I was trained as a elementary school teacher. I was a principal for an elementary school in my early 20s and up into my late 30s, stay-at-home
Very
mom
cool.
from that point on. But always through that thread of more questions. Why are we here? What is it all about? I did a deep dive into that energy field, energy work, quantum physics, the quantum world, sort of demystifying the mystical, um, a lot of the Joe Dispenza work.
Yeah.
Um, and in my late 40s, I felt like I was in a thrive state. Um, I had, my kids were pretty much raised. I was really getting into this energy work. I had clients, had a really strong yoga practice, a really strong community. I felt great. Um, Happy marriage. Everything seemed to be like moving along. All the choices I made were kind of showing up, fruits of my labor.
Yeah.
Um, And then I went into like just a normal, just healthcare environment, meaning I'm wanting to get some things just checked. I've done my skincare checks, mammograms, and I went in for a routine colonoscopy. And they woke me up with a stage 3 colon cancer. And that was really, really heavy,
Yeah. Shocking.
um, shocking. And, you know, that's kind of where I landed when I turned 50. That was what was showing up. And all of those tools, all of those spaces that I thought I had created the safety net for myself, it fell apart.
Hmm.
Um, I really didn't know where to land. It completely dysregulated my nervous system. I was in fight or flight, um, really just spiraling. Um, and I guess now it's my journey back to healing.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing all of this too, by the way. It's an honor to hear your story, and thank you for sharing it. And one of the things that you talked about was that you went into your regular doctor's visits, and you had mentioned to me before that you had had some blood work done and everything came back totally normal.
Right. Yeah. So I had, as being, following by the book, I would go routinely to get a physical. And, they just do that clinical blood work, just the basic allopathic blood work. And
Hmm.
everything had come back normal, all within range. Nothing abnormal, no anemia, white blood cell counts were perfect, liver functions were fine.
Yeah.
And it was just sort of as I was leaving, the physician just said, remember to get your colonoscopy, and this is during, probably right before COVID. And then so COVID comes, that 6, 7 months of kind of like weird doctor appointments and things. I didn't feel an urgency to like get that done. And afterwards, that fall, I had made the appointment. And even when I went in for my appointment with the gastro, we went through this checklist and, the nurse practitioner is just sort of doing an intake and she's like, this is great. This is very routine. We'll schedule you in a couple months. We have an availability, 3 months from now, 2 months from now. Great. That was the end of it. Um, so I went into it thinking like, this is a total waste of time.
Right.
literally laying in that surgery center, like rolling my eyes, like this is ridiculous. Like I'm fine. And that really, so when when they woke me up to that tumor in my colon, I, I mean, it was something I'd never experienced before. Utter shock. I had thought I was doing all the things to prevent something like this. And, I numbingly went through treatment. I numbingly went through surgery. And I would say by the middle of the treatment that summer, about 6 months in, I I started to kind of regulate myself and decided that my health is a choice. So
Mm.
after completion, and I got my port out, there's a fear around that, and I know some of your listeners who have gone through something similar. You're sent out in the wild, really, and to fend for yourself, and we're just going to watch and wait.
Right.
And that wasn't good enough for me. So I did this deep, deep dive into fixing my terrain, and it led me into this interface between consciousness and human health and where they collide. And then that really is, what I'm implementing today. And we can go into some of those things. And so that's sort of the overview. And honestly, now, 3 years out, I feel like I'm back in even a higher level of thrive, a higher vibration. I have control. I have sovereignty. I have boundaries. I have love. I have safety in a whole new level that I never experienced prior to the diagnosis, and obviously during the diagnosis.
Right. Yeah. You mentioned that you were completely shocked, and also that it felt like a distrust of your body, that you just didn't feel like you could trust what you were doing with your body or what your body was doing with you. Is that something that you could elaborate
Yeah.
on?
Yeah. So a lot of people ask me, was I mad at my body? And no, the answer is no, I wasn't mad. I was confused.
Hmm.
I was confused, like, what went wrong? Where did this disconnect happen? Like,
Right.
what, that, and that kind of thing. And, cancers don't just show up one day.
Right.
It's years and years of disconnect from the greater
Yes.
organism to form a tumor cell. So, yeah, maybe in the last 10 years or so, I was doing all of these really healthy things. But it starts in your 20s. It starts in your teens. It's thinking patterns. It's behavior. It's not one thing. It was a collective thing. So what I did was I found an online community that basically did a deep dive into 8 different things that affect human biology and cellular health.
Yes. Could you
And I,
mention what that is, so that, because I'm curious to know too,
yeah,
if you.
so the 8 points are starting with the I am, and then it goes into the flow, and then it goes to fuel, breathing, movement, resting, playing, connecting. And those 8 things I unraveled for every way I had worked with them in the past. I started, and I call it rewilding myself because I became undomesticated. Everything that we do as a collective society is a divorce from ourselves, which is ultimately a divorce from nature.
Hmm.
And because of that, we've set ourselves into these chronic conditions that didn't exist 150 years ago. So as I was thrown back into the wild from my oncologist, had a beginner's mindset on what am I going to do so I do not have to deal with this again. And the IM piece was probably the hardest, first one. So I kind of ignored that because to me that wasn't as tangible as what I eat, what I drink,
Sure.
how I sleep, how I move. Those were things I could kind of get my arms around a little easier. But what I've
Right.
learned is that I am piece is probably the only thing that matters in order to have these other 7 things line up.
Yes.
So some tangibles that I did immediately was the first thing I really did was I went and sat in a sauna because I wanted to get the chemotherapy out of my body. So I learned about detox pathways, and I bought a rebounder to move lymph. So I had the
Mm-hmm.
sauna, the cold plunge, breath work. It's all connected. So, but I could buy a rebounder. That was an easy thing. I
Sure.
could, go to the sauna sessions. That was
Yeah.
easy. But then, because I had all that time to myself, because I was in this healing mode, and I don't know if it was a trauma-based thing, but I retreated because I think I was afraid
Yeah.
to be engaged in society because I felt like everything I looked at, saw, smelled, touched was going to give me cancer. So I was changing so rapidly and healing that I didn't want outside influences to distract me.
Right.
So, and it
Well,
forced me to spend, yeah,
because you didn't know what it was in the first place. So
that's right.
it's starting to, set in that, oh my gosh, it could be this, it could be that. And so,
That's
like you
right.
said, you're in fight or flight constantly, which is not helping, but you are not all the way there to be aware of it yet. Because
That's right.
once you get there, you're like, oh, I can feel myself now. I understand that I'm in fight or flight. I know what this feels like now.
Right.
Yeah.
And sitting with that it's really uncomfortable. I
Yeah.
mean, and that's where and so this became kind of a non-negotiable for me to be able to really hone in on this healing. So some other things that I did that I hadn't done before was I shopped at the farmer's market every week. I learned that the food we eat, even though I was going maybe to Whole Foods or, Publix or whatever and buying organic, 30% of the food, everything else was in my mind, good enough. I
Sure.
realized that it doesn't matter. It's actually the soil health and knowing the farmer, knowing how it was grown, knowing what I'm putting in my body. And
Right.
as a society, we've lost our nutrient connection. We've lost those micro and macronutrients to be absorbed by the cells. So I
Yes.
needed to figure out a way to, it's not you are what you eat, it's you are what you digest. You are what you absorb.
Right. Because I don't want to get sidetracked, but I think a lot of people can relate to this. It's like you're doing all the things, right? But then you go in and you're being told, well, your cells aren't really taking in what you're putting in there. And part of that is because your cells they're tired, they're sleepy, they're not actually being
That's
nourished
right.
first
That's
to
right.
then take in all the things. And people don't understand what that means. But that's also why, then you're encouraged to get the bottle of the dried greens and put it in water and drink it, because then at least you're getting something that the cells can be
Right.
nourished by to then be hydrated. Right. It's like
But even
all
on
these.
that kind of mentality, that's how that's what I thought I was doing being healthy. I'd be buying greens. But then I
Right. Right.
realized these grains that have been ultra processed into a plastic can that have traveled 3,000 miles, that's my nutrition.
Right. Right.
No.
Right.
That is where I think, when I said I was healthy before, that would be a really good example
Yes.
of, is that really one thing I learned, and this will all tie into it, is that we are freaking miracles. We are 70 trillion cells that knit together in our mother's womb. And we try to micromanage the gut with probiotics, micromanage nutrition, instead of listening and stopping and understanding that we are so much more than,
Right.
a quick blended drink. By chewing our food, that starts the whole digestive process. But if we're just downing these smoothies that have been sort of pre-chewed for us, there's no
Mm-hmm.
nutrition in that.
Right.
So it comes down to nuances. And I'm breaking down nuances, which shows that all those 8 points I talked about, it's so different than what we've been told and taught and believed to be health. It's not
Yes.
health. It's just, that's may be considered health in these circles, in the trending circles, but I wanted to be in a thrive state.
Yeah.
And what I learned was that our bodies are these miraculous regenerative machines that, given the right environment, they will heal in no time. So there's a golden ratio that I learned in this healing journey. It's called the rate of injury versus the rate of repair. So if you're doing too much to injure yourself, stop injuring yourself and let your body repair. And it goes the other way. When you repair, your body's not injured. So it's like so you basically, your body can handle a little bit, and that's called hermetic stress.
Mm-hmm.
But when we overdo it, and it's a chronic inflammation, then your body is just going to be chronically inflamed. It's almost like you hit your knee, 4 days later, your knee is better. But if you hit your knee, and then you hit your knee 3 hours later, and then you hit your same knee, you hit your same knee, you hit your same knee, your
Right.
knee's never going to get better. And that's what we do when we eat at 9 o'clock in the morning, a double latte with a donut. And then at 11 o'clock, we're going to meet a friend out at Panda Express and think we're doing well by getting chicken and vegetables. And then
Right.
we're going to go meet a friend for drink at 4. And then we're going to go home and have dinner with our family, which is like a prepackaged something. And then we're going to go
Right.
sit in front of, it's just like, it's constant injury
Yeah.
without repair. So, it's something, but we're in this go, go, go mentality. And what made me realize is that I have slowed down everything. I say no to things where before it's like the fear of missing out. It's almost like now I have fear of being included because, I have such a, like, I'm so like, my nervous system is so regulated that going out irritates
Throws
my
it out.
nervous system.
Yeah.
Right.
Right. Yes.
So it's just and it does I'm showing up differently, and I think that people don't know what to do with me now,
Right. Yeah.
friends,
Well, this is a big life-changing thing. I mean, this is not something that most people just go right back into being what they were before. It is totally
it
altering.
is a total life altering. I mean,
Yes.
and people say it's a gift I mean, it changed me, and I have to say it did change me for the better. I like who I am way
Mm-hmm.
better. I trust myself. I feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
I move differently. I breathe differently. I drink differently. I eat differently. I think differently. I
Yeah, you
play differently,
connect
and I connect
differently.
differently.
Yeah, for sure. And so
Mhm.
you said, that the first thing was the I am, and that,
Yes.
and you told me yesterday, and you just mentioned it, that I am a miracle, right? I mean, that's definitely a place to start for people.
It's a place to start. And
Yes.
know that your body and I am healing. Like, know your body wants to heal. It's not
Mhm.
against you. It loves you.
Right. It doesn't want
When
to be
you were,
sick. That's what it
it
doesn't want.
doesn't want to be sick. I mean, think
Yeah.
about this. When you've got that one cell, so first of all, when the egg and the sperm meet, there is a zinc flash. It's a big flash of
Yeah.
light. And I
That's
think you
right.
probably know
Light.
about that.
Yep.
So then after I think about 20,000 iterations of which looks like a tumor, really, the zygote, the egg and sperm
Yep.
mixing together, it starts to branch off. So how does that kidney cell know how to be a kidney cell every single time? How does that liver cell know to show up to be a liver cell for you every single time?
Right.
We are constantly dying and being reborn, dying and how do you show up at Brooks every single day and you don't show up as me? Like
Right.
that is your original design and your original math that makes you you. And we don't know how to honor that. We weren't trained to honor that. Our generation, the last 100 years, we've been trained out of the storytelling,
Mm-hmm.
like having elders teach us. it's been a what's in it for me mentality.
Mm-hmm.
But nature doesn't work like that. She is
Mm-mm.
collective. She is collaborative. She is community. She doesn't care about the individual. She cares about the species, the group, the collective.
Right. Yep.
So that is the number one thing I would encourage people, is to know that you are a freaking miracle. You deserve to be healthy. You deserve to heal.
Mm-hmm.
You are knowing. You intrinsically know. You know when you're taking your baby to the doctor and they're going to jab them with all of these, you know, you're cringing. I mean, and I did it with my kids, like, but it's cringy. And I think if we need to start listening and feeling that and honoring, like, this doesn't sit right with me, and whatever that
Whatever
is
it
for,
is, that's right. And listen to that. To listen
listen
to
to
that.
that. And don't
Yes,
bend your truth to make others more comfortable.
that's
I
right.
mean, that is another thing that I have learned. Like, the answer is no, and you do you, you know?
Right. Yes.
So
And when you start with that and you say, you know, I am a miracle, my body is amazing, I I honor my body, you start to go into the vibration of I love myself, which is scary
absolutely.
for a lot of people. Like you even
Well,
said that you can say, yeah, I love myself, but you know, kind of a thing.
yeah,
It's like it's hard, but
we've been
it's not
taught to
to
not
say
love
it. You have to
ourselves.
feel it. You have to believe it, right?
Yes, and you know, when you believe it, you will metabolize everything differently. You will metabolize the sun on your skin differently. You will metabolize the food you eat, the thoughts you think, the air you breathe. Like, we metabolize things differently when we send love to ourselves and to others. And it sounds really like cliche, but, and so prior to the diagnosis, you know, I was in this energy work and I was saying all that to clients, and, you know, I believed it to the level that I could believe it. But this cancer diagnosis forced me to feel everything and
Mm-hmm.
to emote less. And what I mean
Mm-hmm.
by that is we emote, emotions are basically ultra processed forms of feelings. So when we remove the emotion and we actually sit with ourselves to feel, we can move and metabolize those feelings so much more quickly than letting them get
Mm-hmm.
stuck in the body parts. I mean, you know, Brooks, you do the
Yes.
emotion code for a living. You can
Yes.
speak to that.
Yes. Well, what I was going to say when you're bringing that up, a lot of times when we're going through something, we go to what we've been trained and to think and feel, and those emotions are just attached to that because it's comfortable, it's been practiced, it's been there for so long. But like you said, if you just do the pause thing, right? Just pause for a moment, don't attach all the things. Just sit quietly and say, what am I feeling? What is this right now? Not what is it last time I felt it, or what did my mom tell me to feel with this?
That's
Or,
right.
you know, it's like, okay, what am I feeling? What is this? And really listen. Then you can say, oh, I know what this is. This is fear. This is anger. You know, this is self-doubt. Okay, I don't believe those stories anymore. I don't believe that. I'm going to rewrite the story. I'm going to change the narrative, right? All those things that we are now understanding actually work. They change
Right.
the cell work in our body.
Right.
And so practicing, oh, I do love myself. I can stand in my power and feel this for myself. I don't have to, this is not your story. I don't want what you're thinking or feeling or whatever. And then you can let it go.
That's right.
And you can say, okay, that's just a moment, this will pass, and I can plug into something else, I can subscribe to something else besides fear, I can do love, right?
Yep.
And you you also said some things that I just love. It just makes me so happy because um I always try to encourage people to remember what it felt like to be a kid, and to you know, I was actually just looking through my phone at pictures, and my youngest was running around the backyard with no shoes, no shirt, just, you know, just having the
Right.
best time. But when was the last time we did that? And
That's
what
right.
does that do for our body, and um and ourselves? what are your thoughts on that? Because I know you subscribe to
Yeah,
all
I
that.
mean, that's a big one. Yeah. So, yeah, well, I think we are probably 4 years old the last time we walked around, without shoes on. And, so basically my philosophy on life now is that we are in a giant playground on this earth. We are animals, and we've been really domesticated, and we've been told our story, and we will not deviate from that story. So I'm unpacking those stories, and I'm rewilding myself means letting go of that domestication. And so taking your shoes off every day, like I do connect with the earth every single day. It is a magnanimous amount of negative ions when you put your body, onto the earth, and it helps with
Mm,
inflammation. It's grounding, I mean, it's really where you can help with sleep, stress, lowers
hmm.
inflammation, lowers your blood pressure. I mean, all those things that, biohackers are suggesting. Just take off your freaking shoes. Go hug a
Yes,
tree. And it sounds like creepy and crazy, but there's so much scientifically, there's
there is.
microbiology.
Yes.
So we are mostly microbiology in us, more than
Hmm.
cells. Trillions and trillions and trillions and trillions of fungus, parasites,
That's right.
candida, bacteria living in
Bacteria.
and
Yep.
among us.
Yep.
And there's no such thing as bad bacteria. It's just the relationship of bacteria in your body, how it shows up. So
That's
we've been
right.
trained to be scared of biology. Ooh, wash your hands after you touch dirt. Like, we've been trained to do that.
Hmm.
And for that, we're seeing these chronic diseases like skyrocket. Like, we are meant to play on this planet. So
Hmm.
if you look at yourself how a wild animal is, I'm not saying feral and you're like some crazy human going savage in the woods, but it's really like,
No.
like, go like learn some things you can eat. And I call my yard my yarden because I eat out of it. I mean, and yeah, it's
Yes.
crazy and it's witchy and all those things, but I have learned, like, I make herbal teas from dandelions. Like, you
Yeah,
see,
it's
you
beautiful.
start,
That's what they're
it,
for.
it's what they're for. They're God given. Even I was at the cancer center getting my scan one year, a couple of years ago, maybe 6, 7 months, probably like last year. And I always like to take my drink with the contrast in it and sit outside and take my shoes off and just say a little divine prayer that this is going to be for my highest and best good. And these little dandelions are popping up everywhere at the cancer center. And I was like, isn't that interesting? Like, so, I
Yeah,
mean, she shows up for us,
she
long
does.
before
Yes.
the laboratories and the chemicals and whatnot have shown up for us. She was there for us. And I'm honoring that. And, yeah, so I go on foraging, um,
That's
classes
right.
with and with, some Nashville, like they call it nature explorers or some things, just to learn like what's native. And, when you're on your hike, like what can you pick up and eat? Sorrel's such a good lemony taste. And, um, you know, I, I'm learning about herbology, I'm learning about tonics, and I'm learning about tinctures and ancient healing things that, and a lot of people, your listeners, may have had parents or grandparents that did all these things. Mine didn't. I mean, I was like ate out of the can, and I had a stay-at-home mom, and she did the PTA thing and whatnot, but we didn't have the backyard garden. So that's a big thing was, I have a backyard garden, and it's just a connection. And even if you're living in
Yes.
an apartment or a condo, get a mint plant in your window. I mean,
Right.
they nothing you can grow a mint plant, and just eat out of it and make a tea. Put it in your lemonade. I mean,
Yep.
there's something so like feminine about being able to birth something,
Yes.
and it's as magical as holding that baby, is watching that
Yes.
carrot shoot up from the earth. It really
Yes.
is. And because if you think about, we are the micro of the macro. So we are of the earth. The
Yes.
amount of water in our body and the ratio of minerals is exactly that of the ocean.
Right.
So what's happening on the macro is absolutely happening on the micro. So that
Yes.
leads you into your gut. The garden of your body is, so that's where I'm a big stickler on soil health and where my food comes from. Because like I said, what's happening on the macro is happening on the micro, or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
macro, micro. Yeah. So it's like, I'm feeding my internal. I've tried to change my internal garden in the beginning of this because it was chemically dependent. It was like a monocultured field in Kansas. It was
Yeah.
depleted of everything. It was chemicals. It had no nutrient value. There was no nutrition coming in. I had inflammation, and I wasn't like, you look at me and I don't look a whole lot different. It's just I feel different, and I probably have
Mm-hmm.
a different aura around me. So I
Mm-hmm.
think I glow differently.
Mm-hmm.
But to the untrained eye, I don't look different, but I know I am different. I have completely upregulated everything about my lifestyle
I can
to
see it.
connect more with nature.
Yeah. I know it
Yeah,
too. When we talk, I can tell that the way you feel about yourself is different. And because of that, the capacity to hold that space for other people is different. And so I see that. Um, I want to go back to something you said about the feminine part, and that doesn't apply to you if you are not a female. We're talking about the um, receiving and the nourishing and the birthing and those parts of the femininity and the divine feminine, not just who
that's
we
right.
show up every day in this life,
That's
and
right.
that we have both divine feminine and divine masculine in our makeup, and that it is there for us to partake of if we want to receive it and want to be a part of it. And so just
Yeah,
to
there's a
throw
balance.
that
We,
out
we,
there.
we all have that balance, and the over masculine of fixing structure and that type of thing
Sure.
is, like there's an imbalance on that end.
Right.
So you're having both the masculine archetype and the feminine archetype in our souls, and
Yes.
balancing that. And if you look into nature, she is a gigantic balancing act of all of that.
Yep, for sure. And so how has this changed the way that you move? You mentioned the 8 points, and one of them is flow, and so but also movement, I would assume, and breath.
Yeah,
So
yes. So
how does that show
movement.
up for you now?
Yeah. So, um, so if you look at our biology and the way that we are shaped, we're very symmetrical.
Mhm.
That's by design. So we should be moving with symmetry. And if you look at the way our bodies are designed, the treadmill seems pretty boring when you look at the way that we are built. We are designed to hang, run, jump, climb, skip,
Mm.
hop, pull, push. So
Yes.
I include those types of things in my daily movement. Our indigenous cultures might sprint from the animal. So there's something in current terms called HIIT training, high intensity interval training.
Right.
And if you look at sprinters versus long distance runners, the sprinter looks like the ultimate masterpiece of human physique, where the long distance runner looks a little malnourished and thin. So when you line yourself with that kind of like mentality, how can I move today? It's not like
Mhm.
I don't say I'm going to go to the gym for an hour and do my
Mhm.
arms. I say move my body today. And that may be, even if it's going to Costco, I mindfully park far, carry heavy stuff, lift heavy things, and I carry a lot into my house at once. So I'm trying to move. When I
Yes.
brush my teeth, I actually brush with my opposite hand and stand on one foot.
Yeah, I
I
love
mean,
it.
it's so I practice balancing. I rebound. I hike. I hike
Yeah.
sometimes with a weighted vest. Um, I might just, even if I'm going on a walk in the neighborhood, there's a Japanese study that just came out that if you walk really fast for like 3 to 5 minutes and then walk normal pace for 3 to 5 minutes and then walk really, so even if that's all you're doing is walking, change it
Right.
up. Like we need to be I'm going to flexible. For food, it's metabolically flexible, not doing the same thing every single time, every single day. But it's
Right.
also movement flexibility. If you're just going to the same gym, driving the same way to the same
Right.
gym, doing the same repetition, it's not living. And like, you won't see the results you're meant to see. And it's just quite honestly boring. And if you
Right.
look at bodybuilders, they are asymmetrical. One
Right.
side's longer than others. And if you notice, like from a longevity perspective, bodybuilders do not live as long. So it's almost because this is part of the rewilding. When I'm watching TV, I might sit on the floor and do a deep squat for 15 or 20 seconds. Like I'm not always just sitting on the couch. I
Right.
might, I'm practicing that kind of thing. I
Yeah, you
just
said
recent
that you've challenged yourself to get up off the floor.
without using my hands.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because if
and
you,
and then also like I think it was featured in the most recently, not just the only place, but in the Blue Zones on Netflix, which I've love. But that we should be able to squat and do all of those things well into our 90s. But
that's right. I mean,
I'm
that's exactly right. And even like with my garden, I had to carry these heavy bags of compost and soil, and I carried them. I didn't have a wheelbarrow because I just didn't. But so it took me a long time, maybe a half an hour or so, but I carried these, 30-pound bags out of my car into the car. But because I can. And when you're starting like, oh, this is so awful, just there's a moment of gratitude. Like, I am so grateful I can carry a 30-pound bag of soil at 53
right.
years old. And it's hard. It's not
Sure.
fun, but
Right.
like it's that. So the movement piece is, I move every day. I've been doing some stand-up paddle boarding with some of my friends in my yoga class who are true inspirations. They're in their 70s, and we go to Percy Priest or Old Hickory, and we bring our blow up stand up paddle boards in our
Yeah.
cars, and it's just like probably 5 years ago I would tell my story, tell the narrative. Oh, I'm not going to do a stand up paddle board. There's no way I'm going to stay up. So I've changed that narrative on everything. Like even if I see a
Yes.
food, like say somebody's like, oh, I don't do goat cheese. Well, do goat cheese, like just do it. Or, whatever it is, like stop telling, because it's like you're pigeonholing yourself
Right.
in these narratives and these stories where it's like we're too dynamic as humans. We're too much of a miracle to say I'm vegan or I'm vegetarian or I'm paleo. Like, you're so much more than that. You're not that. You can
Right.
be anything. Like, in one choice, you can be anything you want to be. Like, oh, I
Mm.
only have coffee in the morning before I eat. No, I don't know what I'm going to do tomorrow. I actually might just have a
I
tea.
know, I love that.
Like so I've changed I have no codependent relationships, even with the coffee. Like, even
Yes.
with, like, it's almost like you die and are born in every moment. And I think truly when our true death is, I think you're just reborn into the next iteration of yourself. It's just this change of energy. So,
I do too.
um,
Yes.
so that's how I move.
Good. I'm glad. And I'm glad you're breathing too, because most people are not breathing.
That's right. Most people do not breathe well. They're shallow
there's
breathers. They breathe
there's
out of their
yeah.
mouth.
Yep. I do the mouth tape at night. I cannot tell you how many times I've had to remind clients, you can breathe right now. It's okay because they've stopped breathing.
That's right.
So just yeah, now I think people are getting the clue here, like, or the hint of it. Breathe. So
Yes, there is
stand
ways to
in the
breathe.
grass.
Yeah, stand in the grass. I breathe in different biomes, meaning several times a year, I make sure we take a trip to a desert, to an ocean, to a wetland, grassland. I touch everything. I play in ocean streams. I drink out of waterfalls. There's a whole myth that it's like bacteria in the waterfall. Well, if it's moving water at like 8 meters per 3 seconds, it
Right.
actually is not collecting toxins. So, and I don't drink gallons and gallons. I mean, I'd love to go find a spring and fill my water bottle. That I'm a little leery of the runoff with the glyphosate, but I would love to do that. And when I travel, I make sure I get mineral spring water.
Hmm.
I bring a bag of nuts and seeds with me everywhere I go for that. I actually bring Celtic sea salt with me when I travel,
Yep.
and I remineralize my water. I mean, I don't drink tap water. So the flow piece, like we are 70% water, and that also means go with the flow, which is back to
Yes.
that rebirth and death thing.
Yep.
So that's the flow piece, the water. And I eat mostly, I eat my water and food. So I don't
Yes.
guzzle 8 glasses of water a day. And for detox pathways, actually, it's really not beneficial to guzzle water. You're better to sip it throughout the day instead of like, I drink my 32 ounces before 11 o'clock. Well, you've really done a really hard thing for your kidneys, and
Right.
you're not able to detox. So, the detox pathways are a big deal, and that goes back to that breath work, nasal breathing, mouth taping. Couple times a month, I'll do those super ventilation where it takes you almost, so you actually can create those same peptides that people get with ayahuasca. It's actually magical, and I'd love to experience it with you, Brooks,
Yeah.
or anybody else. If it's really, it's 20 minutes and it's super ventilation, and you are so expanded. You can, it's like you are one with the earth. You create what those ayahuasca journeys are trying to do. I mean, it's actually a
Yep.
really mystical experience. That's like super ventilation, and it helps with like mitochondrial function, which is, we're killing our mitochondria because of the glyphosate and everything. So it
Right.
repopulates that little mini bacteria that is actually a bacteria that lives inside each cell. So
Yep. Yeah. Well, I think it's all fascinating. I think it's going to be over some people's heads.
I don't mean to be. Okay, so really go
Just a
outside,
little bit.
touch the earth,
Yeah.
love on yourself.
Yeah.
Don't
I
overcomplicate it. If it doesn't feel good, it probably isn't.
I think I wrote down a couple things too while you while we were talking about especially the movement part, that we were meant to be on an adventure and to be curious,
That's right.
not just like you said, don't make it the exact same thing every time, go off on a little tangent, maybe take a different
Climb a
route,
tree. Right, right, right.
climb a tree, right, and of course the biggest piece is the awareness part, that don't just go through it all. Like you said, even just the part of, okay, fine, you're having your downtime, watching a show or something, but you can be, like you said, on the floor or moving or in a deep squat, something that your body craves, honestly, to just move everything that is so still a lot of the time. So,
That's right. Yeah. Um, and herbal teas are a really good way to unwind at night, instead of staring and scrolling. Um, just sort of honoring the indigenous cultures before there were cell towers, before there were buildings, like people, they weren't getting cancers. They weren't getting chronic diseases. And people will say, well, they weren't living as long. It's the chronic disease piece that
right,
people in their 20s are getting chronic diseases.
right.
So yes, we have really mastered the infection piece, like the deep infections. We've really mastered wounds.
Yes.
Um, but the chronic disease, I mean, for the amount of money thrown into this $1 trillion healthcare, we're just getting sicker and sicker. So I'm just going back to like root cause stuff, I mean, because that's really where I started on this was what in the
Yeah.
world was my root cause of
Well,
this
and I was
injury?
gonna, that's so funny because I was gonna come back to that. So after all this time, after all this change in your life, what have you, I don't know, what's the conclusion that you came to about the seed maybe that was planted in your gut all that time ago that kind of started to fester and change?
Well, I think so. Are you asking like what do I think was my root cause?
Yes. And I
Yeah.
think that there's two parts of that, right? Because we are
Yeah.
both. We will always be both that
Yeah.
spiritual energy and this physical
Yeah.
body. And so I think that it always starts in a spiritual
So
form.
interesting. I'm going to start with what Rumi, the poet, said, and I'll probably get it wrong, but something along the line is the wound is where the light can come in.
Yes.
And I want to start with that because without this wound, I would not be able, wound of the cancer, I would not be able to unpack what I think was my root causes. And what my root causes were, and you and I talked yesterday between big T, which is big trauma, and little T's, which is like death by a million paper cuts kind of thing. I think mine
Right.
was a bunch of little T's
Yes.
and people pleasing, codependency, not feeling my voice mattered.
Yes.
Those are, I think, my root causes, coupled with the environmental stuff. Because I think if you have all of those root causes, but you're not being completely injured, then you can metabolize things. You can metabolize some things better. But when you've all gunked up from herbicides and pesticides and toxic environments and, you know, all the things that accumulate over 50 some years, then you can't metabolize it. So it gets stuck. So, and the other way around, if you have a perfect, you know, healthy system, then you can metabolize it the other way. So
Hmm.
I think blockages. So I'm learning how to put up boundaries and that type of thing. But I think part of, so after I did all the tangibles, I went back to the I am piece. And that's harder because that is not as at your fingertips, like take your shoes off and walk on earth, breathe under ferns, you know, make your own sauerkraut. This is more of like sitting with some really hard things. And first of all, realizing there's hard things because we
I,
all put these heart walls up like, oh, there's nothing wrong with me. I'm great. I had a great childhood.
I,
And I did, you know, but it's, so it
yep.
was like going to like you, Brooks, like unpacking some emotional code things and really like after the sessions are over, like the real work is after the session is over. Um,
Changing it, flipping it.
yeah, yeah, realizing that there was something to be done.
Right.
You know, a lot of the Reiki, a lot of the breath work, honestly, those deep ventilations, I mean, it clears because of the deep ventilation, you know, we hold grief in our lungs, right? So when you're doing the
Right.
super ventilation, you are expelling deep, deep, deep grief. And it might
Yes.
not be like something like really that you think is grief, but
Right.
the grief of maybe we were abandoned at the biblical level, kicked out of the garden.
Right.
And since then, we've been trying to find our way back. Like the loneliness piece is grief.
Yep.
Not realizing that we are so supported and that we put up fences and we want all this, all the toys are for me and you don't get any. Or you weren't picked to play at the playground. You weren't picked because you're not good enough. You don't throw the ball fast enough and you're not going to help our team. I mean, all those things.
Right. They just add up. It's not just the one thing. That's the
Right.
difference between the big T and the little t. And just understanding that it's okay that you felt that way.
That's
Because,
right. It is okay.
because, yes. And so, okay, I keep going because
No, but that's pretty
you're
much
getting to
it.
the
And
point. Yeah.
so that's pretty much where it is. And you know, there's a quiz that your listeners can take. I think it's called Adverse Childhood Experiences. And the higher Kaiser Permanente did a study on this, and they've shown the higher adverse childhood experiences, the more likely of disease. And
So
it's
interesting.
pretty shocking what one would consider an adverse childhood experience. I mean, it might be you were left in the crib while your mom was making dinner too long, but you felt abandoned, and there was no abandonment. Like you were loved.
Right.
It's just, it's actually kind of
Yep.
amazing. So we all have them, right? I mean,
We do.
we all have them. So I think for me, my relationship with my family has changed. I'm not afraid to speak up in a group. Um, but I can remember back like when my kids were in high school and I was like in a committee for like the prom party and it was all these, you know, really powerful like PTA moms. And I had ideas, but I would never have said a word. I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
now I probably, number one, probably wouldn't join that group. But secondly, um, if I was in the group, I I would feel confident and like I have a great idea. Like, why don't we, you know what I mean? And if they were like, it's
Yes.
not a great, I'm okay with that. Like, so
Right.
I don't know. There is definitely, and part of it could be, the age. So there is
Mm-hmm.
something about wisdom with
That's right.
age. And it's just like, I think I was telling you yesterday, my cancer happened at this like intersection of menopause, empty nesting, and a stage 3 colon cancer. I had no choice but to change. But my change was actually a rebirth. And I've birthed into something new. And I feel it in my belly, exactly where birthing happens. And there's a knowing that my root cause was definitely a trapped emotion, you know, in the part of the body where you should excrete. And so I know part of it was not being able to say my truth. And I know what
Mm-hmm.
that means now instead of just being in that woo woo world of speak your truth. Like I know what that really means.
Yep.
It's, and that's kind of where I am with it. I don't, the codependency with everything with the sunshine, with my dog, with my coffee, with my kids, with my husband, with, my relationship to vacations. Um, everything has pretty much shifted in a way that I am in a way more like flow state.
I love it. Love it. You're so good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, I mean, and happy to like reach out and, anybody listening, I am an open book. And fur is like symptoms because of like colon cancer, just because it's
Yeah,
probably worth mentioning. Um, I
absolutely.
I didn't really have any symptoms, and that I think is why I was so shocked. In the
Right.
beginning, I said I didn't have any symptoms, but now looking back, there were a few things, and really subtle, but different for me. Um, One was I was starting to get some night sweats, and I thought it was menopause because, that was like my age group. Um, but I noticed, so that was one thing, but it wasn't like soaking wet. It was just like behind my neck. Like I woke up a little sweaty. And so that was, definitely a symptom. The others were, I had no blood, but I did have, the change in bowel habits,
Mm-hmm.
definitely more frequently and definitely looser. And one of the things that was really noticeable looking back is I was like burping a lot, a
Okay.
lot. Um, so those were just some mild things but again, the blood work was perfect and it was a stage 3, with,
Yeah.
one lymph node involvement, which put me in the stage 3 category and, the chemotherapy. Um, so yeah,
So yeah, do your stuff for yourself, right? Like go get
absolutely.
your if you're I think it's 45 now. They encourage
Yeah.
you to go get a colonoscopy.
Yep.
s- Be on
Just,
it.
know your body. And
eh,
if you know your
Know
body, like
and know
through
your
this
body.
conversation, like you would know yourself after, if you implement some of these things, you actually will change your relationship with yourself and you will recognize patterns and you'll recognize what your energy feels like for you and what's yours and what's not yours and what is health and what is not health.
Right.
And that's kind of where, like, even if you do nothing else, just learn, know you're a miracle, know you can heal, and know that you have the capacity to have all your energy for yourself.
I agree. Yes. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, so go stand in some grass. Start your journey
Start your
back
garden.
to, yeah, start your journey back to rewilding, and
Mm-hmm.
you know, do your own thing, do your own journey. Take some time to go see what works for you, and
Yep.
love yourself.
Whatever like the masses are doing, I do the opposite. So that's
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Oh,
Anyway,
well, all right. Well, I hope this has been helpful, and take some time to do all the things, like, subscribe, check it out. I appreciate it. So thank you. I'll talk to you soon, Kim. Thank you for
thank you,
being here
Brooks.
today. Yeah.
Thank
Bye.
you.